Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the European Frogbit Collaborative's first official training of 2023. So what we're going to be covering today is how to use and a little bit of background about the Delimitation app. I'm joined today by Tom Alwyn and Billy Kuiper with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And they're going to be doing the bulk of the overview, including the background, and then actually demonstrating how to use the application. I am glad that they are here because they were involved in the initial development of the app. And this is, I think, the second year now that it's been in Field Maps. So it's been a couple of different versions in the past, but this new one, it's for someone who doesn't do a lot of field work myself. I find it pretty easy to use, but this is just going to be one of the different resources that we'll have available, the recording of this presentation. And there'll be some others that we'll let you know of as well. I'm Sam Tank. I am a project manager at the Great Lakes Commission, and part of my role is facilitating the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. Oh my gosh, wow. Yeah, that one too, but the European Frogbit Collaborative, all of the invasive species collaboratives. So thanks for joining us today, and I will turn it over to Tom to get us started.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Everybody hear me okay?
Sound good.
All right. Excellent. Billy, you want to take us to the next slide? Billy's driving the PowerPoint, and I will be talking for a handful of slides and then passing it over to him. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Alwyn. I don't know if I've already said that. I work for Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and most of the work that I am involved in has to do with early detection and response of aquatic plants. So frogbit has been one of those species, and I'm going to talk to you about background and history. First of all, talk a little bit about the plant. I don't necessarily want to spend a ton of time on this, but this is an image of European frogbit, a drawing of it. It is a free-floating aquatic plant. It is present in Michigan, a number of counties, a lot of spaces on the east side of the state. We'll see a map in a minute, but essentially looking at it, it looks like a water lily, a little tiny water lily in the water. It does produce small white flowers. The easiest way to identify it is with the leaves. They're free floating, so they're up on the water surface, occasionally submerged, but almost always on the water surface. They're kind of leathery. They're, maybe up to 2 inches across. They can be smaller. Usually about the size of a quarter is kind of a decent adult sized leaf. And really the key for ID is looking at the lobes of the leaves. They are rounded. There are some native lilies that when they are young could be misidentified, but they have pointed lobes. So that's really important for identification. The plants are spreading across the state and have been. And they spread through seeds and turions. Seeds obviously produced by flowers. The turions are an asexual reproductive structure that the plants develop when they're stressed, and those are basically just to sort of survive the winter, and that seems to be the main way that they come back at the beginning of the season in a site that they are already established in. Yeah, we can go next slide, Billy. So here we have a map of the Great Lakes region. This was pulled not too long ago, so should be pretty up to date. You can see, I think originally the 30s is when frogbit got into North America, escaped from a water garden, and has been spreading in the Great Lakes and northeastern United States for quite some time. I think Michigan, the first detection was in 1994, 96. I think it was 96. And we think most of the large scale, long distance spread of European frogbit is through boating and potentially like waterfowl hunting. We don't know that for sure. It definitely could be spread by wildlife, but it hasn't spread quickly enough for us to think that that is the main factor for spread of the species. We can go next slide, please, Billy. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about European frogbit, some identification and where you might find it, there is a nifty Great Lakes Phragmites collaborative webinar series that was done not too far back, and that little yellow circled link, bit.ly link, can take you to that, so you can learn some more about European frogbit and listen to me drone on about it for a bit. But if you want to learn more, that's a good spot. So that was part of the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative, but there is a European Frogbit Collaborative now as well. That has been around since about 2018 and formed with a Michigan focus. But just recently, last winter, the Great Lakes Commission began facilitating the collaborative, and it's now being expanded out to the Great Lakes states and provinces, and really looking to expand the Frogbit Collaborative, get the work done throughout the Great Lakes Basin, learn as much as we can, and make a lot of improvements. Talk a little bit about the collaborative now, just so folks can get some background if they're not familiar with it. This is sort of a overall adaptive management framework that was developed. It's a little bit in flux. We may be making some changes to it, but it's still a pretty good grounded fact of where we're going to head with this. And hopefully you guys can read the fine print on here. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but this is essentially a flow chart. So when the adaptive management framework was being developed, the idea was to have the vision initially was sort of pulled together, and then figuring out the priority needs, so that right side and that left side, and then filling in with goals and strategies. The vision, I will read that one because it's important, is for frogbit to not negatively impact the Great Lakes Basin ecosystem or economy. And then sort of the next piece that I like to focus on is these yellow hexagon strategies. And the next slide, I think Billy gives us those written out. So there are 5 of them, starting with the delimitation, which is what we'll be discussing today as the app to conduct delimitations, but then also looking at assessing control efforts to figure out best management practices. That's the second strategy. Work to educate stakeholders, just so folks are not spreading frogbit and are able to identify and report frogbit. Those are kind of the key pieces for the education portion. And then addressing critical information needs. Essentially, there's still a lot we don't know about frogbit, how long turions are viable for out in the wild. How exactly is it spreading? So research needs basically is what 4 is. And then taking those 4, if you remember the last slide, taking those 4 and then squishing them into figuring out how to contain existing infestations and reduce the negative impacts and protect uninvaded sites. So the next slide just highlights that we'll be talking about delimitation of frogbit, which I think I kind of got already. And so we can go to the next one, Bill. Thank you. So with delimitation, prior to the collaborative and the delimitation work group, which works on delimitation issues, there were lots of folks doing frogbit work in Michigan and likely in the Great Lakes region. But everyone kind of was doing it their own way. They were maybe collecting slightly different parameters. They were using different methods, and they were storing data probably just in their own format and their own, database or system of their computer at their office. So there was no central space for that. There was no standardized methods for collecting that data. So it was difficult to take all of that and figure out, piece it together. So the delimitation work group's goal really was to standardize delimitation and survey methods for where frogbit is and is not. And one of the key pieces of that is making sure that absence data is recorded. Early on, people would go to a site, they would look for frogbit, and if frogbit was there, they would maybe drop a waypoint where they found frogbit. And then that was essentially the data you had moving forward for that site. You didn't really know where they looked and didn't find frogbit. You knew where they looked and found it, but if it was a 100-acre wetland, you don't know if they surveyed the whole 100 acres or if they just sort of went around the edge or just poked into one little area and found it, but didn't look everywhere. So that absence data was really a critical piece for the delimitation work group to pull together and figure out how to track. So let's go next, please, Bill. And so the decision was to use GIS-based apps. Most folks have a smartphone or a tablet that they're able to use for field work. It has the ability to standardize everything, collect it on your phone, and as soon as you hit submit, it goes off to a database, a single database that's housed in one spot, so everyone has access to it. And it does have the capacity to do offline data collection. So if you're in an area where you don't have good cellular service, you can still use it. It does have a few cons, the Esri account being one of them, needing to have a device being another. And it's technology, so there's sometimes a learning curve for folks to step into it and start using it, as well as technology changes quickly. So initially, these delimitation apps were on a different Esri platform. And so folks were collecting it that way. And then this field maps, which is what we'll be coming into in a minute, came around. And so it made sense to move to the newer technology, but and you can still display the older data collected, but again, it's kind of learning a new way. So hopefully field maps will stick around for a good chunk of time, and we don't have to develop a whole nother app to do the same thing. But let's move to the next one, please, Billy. So this is like a screenshot of a phone screenshot of field maps. So basically, this is where we took those two apps before, which we used in 2021, to squish them into field maps for 2022. So the idea was just to use a single app rather than two, be able to collect the data that you need to. So field maps has the capacity to do delimitation lines. So basically tracks. As you're walking, it leaves a track behind you where you denote, frogbit density. You can also drop single waypoints to indicate specific information about a point, an area, frogbit densities, and things like that. And then you also have the capacity to draw polygons. And Billy will walk you through these three different steps here once I get through the background. But the polygons are nice for being able to denote treatment areas, especially if you're handing that treatment area off to a contractor. You can provide them with a really nice map with where you want them to treat. So 2022 was the first year that the Field Maps app came about, and you can see it was used pretty widely in Michigan. Again, this is kind of where the collaborative started, but the hope here now is to be expanding out, and you can see we did get a lot of work done in parts of Wisconsin. So you can see what's showing here are the individual the points that were collected during 2022, but you can also see in the legend portion there, the little colored lines and the little colored polygons are how you would do those denotations. And if you look really, really closely at parts of the state, you can see some little blue areas, and those are tracks that were collected where frogbit was not found. So able to collect that absence data and know that right where someone went with their kayak or waded, and frogbit was not present in those sites. We can zoom in on the next slide and see kind of the same thing, but just a close-up. I think this might be, this is in Saginaw Bay somewhere, but lots more points. They switched to a little bit different icon. And then also you can see some of the different tracks, purple lines to denote some dense, or maybe even those are monocultures. And then if we zoom in even closer with the next slide, Billy, we can see polygons where someone went in and drew out polygons to show that they had surveyed those nearshore areas and did not find frogbit. But then you can also see some purple and pink tracks and some green tracks where they found patchy frog bit or dense frog bit. So this information is much more fine scale and usable compared to what we were doing before, where it was, you might have 1 or 2 points down here that said frog bit absent that would basically try to say what that whole polygon is doing. Much nicer to be able to draw it out or have the delimitation tracks. Another GIS tool that I think I think I'm gonna lie. Yep, that is not another GIS tool. That's a problem when I look at the other slides. So want to talk a little bit more about who can use the apps. Essentially, Great Lakes Commission houses the delimitation app, and anyone who wants to use it can pretty much use it. They just need to have an Esri account. So if you are a local land manager, a state agency, federal agency, and you want to use this, we are encouraging everyone to use this because your data is going to feed into the bigger picture and help folks in the Great Lakes region understand where frogbit is and isn't, and can help denote where we want to do management and treatment. And so if you're interested in using the app, or if you haven't used the app yet, the next slide gives you a nice succinct link to where you can get access. And this will basically send a request to the Great Lakes Commission that you want to be added to the list and be able to get access to it and run this data collection. And I've grabbed a screenshot of sort of the website, a portion of the website it'll take you to, and circled in blue the join this group. And that sends the request, and then the commission will more than likely grant you access, and then it'll be up to you to download the apps and then access them on your phones, and you'll be off to the races. And that concludes my background part, and we will step in and let Billy take over and show you how to use the apps. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Nice job, nice job summarizing all that information there about the background and kind of the steps to get access to this. One clarifying point I want to make out or point out there is that it takes more than just an Esri account. You have to make sure if you actually want to do a field data collection that you have to have the field data collector level of Esri account. So there's several different Esri levels of accounts. So you can't just have your basic entry level account. You actually have to have the field data collector or above to do data collection, which last I checked was I think around $300 annually. The price continues to go up on that, but you have to have that if you want to use this type of platform. So before we get into the actual using the app, I want to touch on preparing to do the work, and then any troubleshooting issues that hopefully can be avoided before you go out in the field. So you can do offline work. Tom had touched on that, and that tends to be like most of the issues we've had with issues have came from working offline. So working in remote areas. So I guess first step there is making sure you're in an area. If you are confirming what the cell coverage is like in your area. If you have decent cell coverage, even a couple bars is just fine for this. You can stream data no problem. If you're going in a remote area, so say like northern Wisconsin or maybe the Upper Peninsula, then you would need to download the map ahead of time, which is really easy to do when you first open up the platform. You can right click on it there and you'll see an option to add offline work area. So you'll download your map, you'll select the service area, download it, and then you can work offline in that specific area. So you may run into some issues with some survey tracks having gaps in those offline areas. It's possible, or any areas, if you are trying to stream data in poor service areas, just know that you may end up with some issues there, but they can be cleaned up on the back end, and we can help with that down the road. So another point to make sure, I would definitely plan on bringing some kind of external battery system or a charger if you're on like a powerboat where you can hook to a 12-volt charger, because streaming data does eat up a lot of battery over time, and you likely can't make it a full day on a full battery charge. At least we haven't been able to date. So another part is make sure you've got some decent a unit that has decent GPS accuracy. Most cell phones these days will run 20 to 30 foot accuracy is pretty average. If you're using tablets, we have seen some issues with tablets not necessarily having good GPS accuracy abilities. So check that ahead of time. If there are issues, outdated or older devices tend to have more issues than newer ones. So as you're preparing for this, make sure you've got a device that can handle this type of work. So, and the goal should be you'll get a GPS accuracy reading that's red. Anything over 30 feet will turn up red. If you're under 30 feet, which is the kind of the target range, your GPS accuracy will turn blue. So. Okay, so we're going to talk first about recording a survey track. So this is really the most basic function you can do while out doing surveys. And the idea here is to collect information to verify where you've been. So it shows a record of where you've surveyed, and then being able to tie different frog bit densities to that that attribute, that line. So, as Tom mentioned too, it's certainly important to know where frog bit is, but it's also important to know where frog bit isn't. So, thinking about the data you're going to collect and the location surveyed, think more long term in information. Folks may want to revisit those locations in a few years, or we may be able to we may want to track population changes over time. So. Anytime we're out doing surveys, please do record a survey track, even if there's no frog bit present. It's still very valuable information. So within those survey tracks, you can tie your different densities, or they're fairly subjective densities or observational data with those different lines that you're going to record. And it's fairly easy. So when you open up the app, you're going to select the survey line feature. And that is then going to allow you to take survey tracks, and we'll show a video here shortly on how to do that. So the end result should look something like this. Ideally, when you get done with a survey of a wetland, you want to be able to look back and have a reasonable understanding of where frog bit is, or where you've surveyed, and where frog bit is and where it is not. And then those different densities tied to those. So you can see from this example map here, where you can see some of the more heavily infested areas versus areas that don't have frog bit. So thinking from like a management standpoint, you'd be then being able to have that information to send in a crew maybe or a contractor to do management in those areas because you have a better understanding of where frog bit is within that broader site. So, and you can do this using, you can wade, you can use kayaks, you can use a powerboat. Just the idea here is to make sure you survey an area thoroughly to the best of your ability. So we've got good coverage of this. Okay, so we're going to try to play a video here. This is recording a survey track. So what we're looking at here is you would first start out. I'm going to pause this. We're jumping ahead. So yeah, you're first going to start your survey track. You're going to select your density, which often starts as absent. You're going to hit those three buttons on the right here, and you're going to select start streaming. So this is now a streaming line as you survey or as you kayak or wade through the system. After you survey for a while and you change densities, so let's say you survey and you're changing from absent to now you found frog bit for the first time, you're going to hit the submit button that then records that survey line for absent, and now you've found frog bit. So you found some patchy frog bit here in this case. You'll do the same steps now, and that you'll start streaming again, except you've selected a patchy density. You'll continue now surveying through patchy frog bit until that density changes again, whether that's absent or additional. Maybe you found a denser patch of frog bit. So you'd hit submit again, go back, add to the plus button, add another survey line, and maybe you found this time a monocultural frog bit. So same thing, you would start streaming data again, hit the start streaming, walk your patch or draw your lines in there as you have that different densities of frog bit. And this just continues on. This is a pretty quick example of this. Obviously in the field, it usually doesn't change quite that fast, but you can see the different line colors there of different attributes you've just collected along your survey track from absent to dense. I don't know how that happened. All right, next. How the heck do I stop this? Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties here. No idea how to change slides now. Sam, any thoughts here?
Can you click on the like outside of the window?
Trying to, and it's not going. Oh, there it goes. Sorry. Okay, similar to a line, you're going to do a polygon in a similar fashion. So polygons are really informative data. So thinking more than just beyond a survey track, if you want to collect information about the actual location or the size of the patch of frog bit and where it is in that wetland, thinking more about, this is very informative if you want to send a crew back in there for management. We now have an actual boundary of the entire patch instead of just a survey line that may or may not have a good boundary of on where that line is. So this will the idea here with the polygon is that it gives you a good patch size. So you can either draw a polygon in, so you can do it from a single location where you can manually draw it across the screen, or you can stream a polygon line similar to like what we just did with the survey track. So again, the same density options are available, whether it's absent. Typically, you'd use polygons for only when frog bit's found, but you may end up using one of the options as found and remove. So if you're out there and you find an area that maybe has sparse frog bit and you've already got a crew there, you can record that information of where frog bit is, and then also that it was already removed, so you don't have to send a crew back into that. So also important with this is that you can attach photos of this, so you can monitor your changes or monitor that site over time in the conditions present. So what you'll do is you'll again hit that plus button when you want to collect a polygon. You'll you'll select a location. The arrow here, the cursor in the center there is your starting point, and then you can add points and just continue to move that cursor around and draw that point in until you have your polygon shape. So this is what it looks like actually in the app. So we'll try this again. So this is showing some polygons that were already collected. We're going to add a new polygon here. And this is going to be a manual draw in polygon. So you're going to select your starting point. Confirm that your GPS accuracy is pretty off here, but again, that's the device, that's not normal. So, all right, so you collect a polygon. You're going to add a point for your starting point, and then continue to draw that along the shoreline where you're observing frog bit up into the wetland to then get your patch size. When it's complete, you'll select the density that is tied to that. So in this case, you found it and removed it. You can make some notes on what you did. So we're going to say that this patch was hand pulled. And you can also attach a photo. Now it's recommended I would submit this at this time and then come back and add a photo. But for the sake of this, we didn't do that. But in the most cases, you would want to submit your photo afterwards, go back and edit, which we'll show here. You'd click submit. That feature is now submitted. This one. Sorry. If you want to go back and edit that with the polygons, because it's a lot of information, highly recommend submitting the information, the actual line information or the polygon information first, and then going back and adding a point afterwards, unless you're in like a really high service area, which I feel like that doesn't always happen most of the time when we're doing wetland surveys. So recording a point survey is now the third feature that you can do within this app. And the idea here is that you can record just a specific information point. Maybe you found something unique here. Maybe there's some type of change in frog bit density. The habitat is really unique here. You want to have some more detailed notes about what's going on here, just beyond just a survey track or polygon, which has fairly limited data fields. So you would use the point feature. So what we would do here is then you would select point feature on the plus button. And you can select the different species. So we do have this laid out so you can add different species if you're out there and maybe find some Phragmites or some other high priority species as you're doing this. All right, so we're going to walk through video here of collecting a point. So you're in a wetland, you find something unique you want to document that warrants some more information beyond than just what you normally collect. So you'll click AIS EFB points 2023. And then you'll fill in these subsequent fields as needed. The organization you work for, in this case, I work for Eagle, so we'll add that in. You can add who visited, the purpose of this trip, whether it's pre-treatment or post-treatment or whatever. Any information about the location and so forth as you go through this. All right. It also has information about the water body types, information about the target species, some of the area and density, and some of that other more specific information not captured with those other data fields. You can add multiple species to this if you happen to find a point like that. And then the different life stages. So this is more thinking from like a management standpoint or maybe early detection standpoint. It's like, okay, you found a species, you found frogbit. What's the invasion like? Is it now reproducing? Is it not? Is it healthy? Kind of just a general condition. So, and then you can tag a photo to that as well, or several photos. But again, the more photos you take, the harder it is to upload. So you may need to, if you're in a port service area, upload the point first and then go back and edit to add those photos. So this is where you can, after you have the feature collected, you can scroll through to see the information. You can verify what you've collected, whether it's accurate, if in case you've missed something. You can also see that the photos attached to there. Now, if you want to add additional photos, you can edit it and go forward. So, all right, as far as accessing the data and editing it, all of this data is available to all the users. So within the user group that GLC manages, you'll have access to both the apps themselves, but then a web map, so you can actually view the data that's collected. So, and you can filter it out and download it and tease out your data, or you can see all the data collected across those features. So, and that's that's something we can help with. The administrators at Great Lakes Commission can help with downloading that data and accessing it if you need to. You can also edit the data, which is, it's inevitable at some point you're going to end up leaving your survey track streaming. You don't realize it till you get back to the office, and obviously there's no frog bit between where you were surveying and your office, and you need to clean that up. So that can all be done on the back end through this web map that's available through the ESRI group. You'll have access to. And with that, I'll take any questions, and we're going to transfer over to Sam now.
Thanks, Billy and Tom. Appreciate it. If there's any questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself. Okay, so it looks like Tyler has a question. For this coming year, what would be the best method for updating the status or area of survey sites? Many of our sites, west shore of Lake Michigan, are very vulnerable to infestation, and we will be likely surveying again. So it looks like they're going to be surveyed more than once, and they've already been surveyed in the past.
I can answer this, Tyler. We've run into similar circumstances where we've had to survey locations several times a season, and it does get a little bit messy. It's easier on the back end from the office to kind of filter those out by different dates. My recommendation is just to continue surveying. It's going to look a little messy if you've got a lot of different polygons in an area or lines in those specific areas, but to continue through time. So, and then again, it's easy to filter out on the back end to monitor that stuff.
And if you are surveying the same area year after year, you will have access to previous years, but it's going to be a layer that you can add on. It won't be editable past years, only the current year will be. So if you went and you did any monitoring in 2022, that will be viewable as an additional layer that you can add on to the delimitation app, but it won't show up automatically. So don't be concerned if you don't see past data automatically. Okay, wondering if folks in Lake Ontario are using the app, and how have you pursued buy-in from across the lakes? So right now, my understanding is that the only folks who have been able to use the app right now are Michigan and a little bit of Wisconsin. However, it is available to anyone in the Great Lakes regions. You don't need to be within the Great Lakes boundaries per se, but if you're within any of the 8 Great Lakes states, Ontario, even if you're, along the St. Lawrence and in Quebec, you're able to access this app and just request information or request access. So I would encourage everyone, if you're in other lakes beyond, Michigan and Wisconsin, to download and utilize the app.
Yeah, we're just starting to roll this out beyond Michigan and Wisconsin. So all folks that want to do this are more than welcome.
Yes, this is the first year that we are expanding it. So hopefully by 2024, you'll see lots of points in other places. Any other questions? Okay. Well, as you think on any questions, I can go ahead with just a couple of wrap-up items. Okay, so we will have additional, oh, thanks, Billy. So we will
sharing the wrong screen.
We will have some additional training opportunities this year. There will be some limited opportunities for in-person trainings. We do have some planned in Michigan and Wisconsin. So far, those are our only confirmed ones. So if you're interested in getting some actual hands-on help, we'd be glad to coordinate with you. So you can send an email. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. We also are working to develop some how-to guides on the various different options with the delimitation app, but also some of our other app-based or ArcGIS online resources. And there will be a standard operating procedure available soon. I was hoping to have it updated by today, but I will send everyone who registered an email with the link to that training as well. Or if you're watching after the fact, there will be a link in the recording information below. You can go next, Billy. We will also have a website in the very near future. Right now, you can find some basic information at the Great Lakes Commission website. If you go to Projects and Invasive Species, there is a European Frogbit Collaborative tile that you can click on that gives you some basic information. However, we are going to have a standalone website that is under construction at the moment, but this is going to provide everything from identification tools to how to use the apps to the latest research. So all of that will be available shortly. We did recently establish an email address, which is efb@glc.org. That will be up on the screen momentarily. And we did just this week establish a listserv as well. So if you're interested in either of those, you can reach out to us at efb@glc.org. There it is up on the screen. So this was just one of the apps that we have. We also have a prioritization app, which can be used to help identify priority monitoring locations, and a STIMP as well. And the STIMP is the Standard Treatment Impact Monitoring Protocol, which is hoping to learn more about the efficacy of different management options for European frog. But the prioritization app is already on our GLC EFB group under the Esri account. So if you request access, you should have access to the delimitation and prioritization apps. However, the STIMP is available under MISSIN, the Midwest Invasive Species Information Network. Okay. That I pulled a blank right there. So that will likely in the future be moved over to the same Esri account. But if you'd like access to that, I'm happy to direct you, so you can reach out to me. But that would just require requesting to join another Esri account. And you can also participate more in the collaborative, like Billy and Tom had indicated. This is only the first year that we're expanding beyond Michigan officially. And so we are looking to have representation from all of the Great Lakes states, provinces, including local organizations, SISMAs, PRISMs, tribal agencies. So please reach out if you're interested in getting involved. And we can throw up our contact information. There once again is a link to the app, and I can, before we sign off, we can do one more quick pause for any additional questions. Okay, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Billy, Tom, thanks so much. It was a great overview, and everyone be on the lookout for that SOP and some additional video links as well. Thanks all.
Thank you, Sam.